Let's unbox the brand new Black Series 6-inch figure of Ezra Bridger Peridea from the Ahsoka series.
Villa Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it.
Hello there, thanks for visiting Villa Varykino. I'm very excited to have a brand new Black Series figure to unbox today. This is Ezra Bridger in his Peridea outfit from the Ahsoka live action series. He is part of a brand new assortment of 5 figures in the Black Series 6-inch lineup. It took a bit of hunting, but we were able to find all 5 here in New Zealand. This wave has arrived here a little bit early than expected, so it was very exciting. We were able to hunt down all 5 of the figures. That includes the Night Trooper, Chewbacca, Ezra Bridger, Han Solo, and Night Sister Merrin. We have opened up 3 of those figures. I'll have those unboxing videos linked down below. And today it is Ezra's turn. I love this look of Ezra. It was so exciting to see him going from the animated Rebel series into the live action Ahsoka series. And he's got a really cool outfit here. It's going to be a lot of fun to unbox. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll take a closer look at the Ezra figure out of the packaging. We'll go over all of the details and articulation. But first, let's take a really quick look at the packaging. This brand new Ezra Bridger figure is actually the second version of the character in the Ahsoka line of Black Series figures. Way back when we still had the older style of packaging, this version of Ezra Bridger Lothal, was number 2 in the line. Now, of course, this isn't my favorite look of his. We barely really see it in the series. This is the figure that I really wanted, so I'm so excited. We finally have him as number 18 in the line. Let's take a quick look at the packaging. I love this new style, much more squared off, looks fantastic. We've got the Star Wars, the Black Series logo here at the top with the gloss effect for the Star Wars logo. We've got a lovely big window here at the front that wraps around on that left edge. And for the Ahsoka series, we have a teal accent color continuing on from the older packaging style. We have the accent stripe under the window with the text Star Wars Ahsoka, and that same color used for the character name written down the side here, Ezra Bridger Peridea. Here's number 18 in the line. Moving on to the side, we still have the fantastic mural art down the side, and this is a fantastic artwork here of Ezra holding a lightsaber with the accent color coming in at the bottom with the character name printed there as well. That accent stripe continues on the back, again with the number 18, with an insert there of that fantastic mural art there on the back. We also have a blurb for the character. Exiled to another galaxy after the final Battle of Lothal, Ezra Bridger is rescued by his friend Sabine Wren on the ancient world of Peridea. Fantastic. He looks really cool, but of course I think he's going to look awesome out of the packaging, so let's open it up. So now I have the Ezra Bridger figure out of the packaging as well as the singular lightsaber accessory. So let's dive in and take a closer look at the details. As a big fan of the Rebels animated series, I was really excited to see so many of those iconic characters making their way into the world of live action with the Ahsoka series, and Ezra was such a fun addition there. This character has so much detail with his new costume. There is so much going on there, and I'm really curious to see how it's all going to translate in terms of posing, but the details look really good just as a quick glance. Taking a closer look at the face, we have those distinctive blue eyes. I love the modern era of the digital printing, especially for face details in the Black Series line. Live action Ezra has very distinctive blue eyes, and we can really see them there on this face. Really nice. And of course, we've got a lot of other details. We've got this really nicely sculpted black hair, very textured, not flat at all. In fact, in some areas where you kind of look at it from the side, you can see that the hair flicks raise quite up from the rest of the hair. Very nice. It looks nicely aligned and placed. Sometimes you can kind of see where the gaps form between the two pieces. This one looks attached very nicely, comes down over the ears at the sides, and then we have a beard. The beard is sculpted in as part of the face. It's quite raised in places. It is also painted black to match the black of the hair, but interestingly we also get a little bit of digital printing, kind of almost like stubble just above the raised beard section to kind of trail off, give it a little bit of a gradient onto the cheeks there. It was really interesting to see that. Just a little bit of this digital printing around on the cheeks. And of course, Ezra also has these 2 scar lines on his left cheek there. They feel printed. I don't know if they're actually part of the sculpting, but very, very nice there. I like that detail there. I like the intensity in the eyes. I like the expression. We've got dark matching eyebrows there as well. The hair is quite a good distance off the back of the costume there in the back, so hopefully we'll be able to move him around quite nicely, but the likeness is there. I really like it. Moving on to the costume, we've got the sort of dark wine, a sort of a burgundy dark red robe over a pale color inner tunic. We've got this chainmail insert here at the top. We've got a sash belt, a leather belt, pants. We've got armor over boots as well. So much going on. So looking at the chainmail section, we've got this really nicely textured chainmail insert here at the neckline. Really nice metallic finish. It is quite textured. It really does look like little plates all overlapping there. Very nice. We've got a pale tunic that crosses over. We've got a braided detail across the left edge here and also at the bottom here. Looking at costume details, the braid is the same color as the tunic, so this isn't unpainted. It is supposed to be that color, which is nice. I like the fabric draping of the robe there. Very nice outer robe, very big. We've got a lot of deep folds here, especially in the back. I don't think this is, I don't know if it's actually got like a layer of paint on it to do sort of the shadows. I think that is just the effect of the shadow, like just the depth of the actual draping here in the plastic. I could be wrong. Sometimes Hasbro does really subtle shading. It kind of tricks the eye, but I think it is just the effect of the draping and sculpting, which is just fantastic. We've got sort of the sleeves coming to an end around the elbows. They drape down in this big full shape here in the back, which looks really nice. Very deep kind of draping gap here in the back, which is nice. And it was a little bit hard to tell through the box, but we do have a very wide split here at the sides, because of course this is plastic. It's coming all the way down to the shin armor. So if this was actually fully sealed up, we would barely be able to move the legs, but we can see that that split goes all the way up nearly to the belt, which means that we can move this. I got to say, I'm happy to see how flexible this is. Some robes, especially when they have deep sculpting lines, they are quite rigid to move. On the back here, this is going to be a little bit more stiff, but this front section is a little flatter. I can lift that up very easily. We can see the pants underneath there. That looks like a thigh swivel there at the top of the pants that I can see. And we also have the other side. This one might be a little bit more restricted because we do have this belt section that is actually hanging over the split. The top of the split's coming just up underneath that belt, and it's being a little bit covered by this. So I don't know that I'm going to be utilizing this split because I feel like I'm going to start pulling on this belt. This is kind of a thinner section here. I don't want to stress that, but I know that for people that want to create some really cool poses, that's going to be really important to be able to access the articulation there in the legs especially. This is a deep line here in the back, but that is not a split. It is just in the sculpting. It doesn't split apart. This is all one section across the back. Very nice there. So interestingly, of course, he's got this shoulder armor component. He's got sort of a lot of homemade sort of armor components. The armor on his shins here, sort of like long thin sticks that have been sort of woven together to kind of create shin armor out of wood. That's very interesting. And we also have this sort of section here on his left shoulder. Interestingly, I thought because of how tight to the shoulder it was, I thought maybe it was going to be attached, but it is not. You can see the attachment style there, kind of inserted there at the top of the shoulder, and it is just shaped. Of course, if we're going to play around with that, I might bend it open a little bit, so it's not going to sit quite as close if I really play around with that, but that means that that armor component's not going to be impacting on the arm to move it around, but of course it's going to become misaligned if we really start swinging the arm around. It's not going to travel with the arm. It's going to stay attached there at this shoulder point there as well. We do have this strap across the chest. Starts out the sort of pale color up here, then it transitions into, I think this is the painted section here. We've kind of got like a leather wrap sort of effect going round, comes up under the arm and transitions back into the pale cord here on the back. It is glued or pegged and glued onto the back here. It is attached firmly here. So it does kind of sit up on my figure. It's kind of floating a little bit around the front, but I do appreciate that it is kind of locked in place. A little bit of adjustment, certainly if I start moving his arms around, that's probably going to sit a little bit flatter to the chest. It's just kind of floating just a little bit around the front, but it's looking good. And I like the fact that it's really going to stay in place. Sometimes when the accessories shift around, it can be a fight to get them to sit nice and close to the body when you start moving the arms around. Looks really nice. We've got just a little bit of that tunic showing here out of the outer robe sleeves. Then we transition into wrapped gauntlets in a different color. Not too much paintwork here, but it is nice to see that texture of the wrapping coming through. Same sort of thing on the other sleeve, but we've got a sort of a compad detail here with two metallic finishes. We've got a gold paint, and this looks like a dark gunmetal sort of silver tone inset there. I'm always impressed when Hasbro does these small painting, because we know there are certain sections where they do skip it out, but I do find that they are generally pretty good about gauntlets and things like that. Tends to be little buckles on the belts and the boots that we tend to start skipping things, but I like the fact that we've got not one but two colors there on the wrist. The hands and forearms do tend to be fairly prominent when we start getting lightsabers and accessories involved. We've got a nice fabric wrap belt coming around the middle here. I'm guessing this is where we're going to get that mid-torso articulation hidden in behind this belt. This leather belt kind of strapped on over the top is one piece. This is all contained together. It is not separate overlapping pieces, but we do have this gap here where the leather belt kind of slings down over the hips. We've got some tassels there. I like the texture that we have here. Kind of looks like creased leather, and then we've got the wrinkles of the fabric section. We've got the satchel here. No extra additional paint, but it is a different brown to the strapping there of the leather belt, which is good. We've got a hook coming here off that fabric section there, which I'm hoping we'll be able to attach the lightsaber. The hook is just behind the satchel section here, so the lightsaber is going to hang in behind it. I'm hoping that's going to fit on the included hilt quite nicely. And we also have a little bit of a cord hanging down here in the back coming off of that fabric section there as well. Really, I'm always really impressed when Hasbro can take draped fabric and make it look pretty good in plastic form. Plastic, you know, it's rigid. It's just, it looks really nice. I like the proportions of the way it's hanging off the body. Some of the older figures way back, when you could put plastic robes over torsos, they kind of sat like a halo kind of around the body. They kind of floated. I'm really liking how close in fit, but we're still getting a lot of draping that looks really nice. Just impressed with how sort of shaded that looks, just with the depth of the folds and stuff like that. Very nice. Underneath we have these kind of caramel colored pants. We can see the articulation going all the way up to the hips there. I'm going to be careful with the side splits. I don't want to risk them, but I do want to show the articulation under there. I can see those high thigh swivel sections there. Articulation at the knee, just kind of fitting in where the pants are kind of creasing and wrinkling, tucking into those knee-high boots. Different color for the boots, and we've got two-tone painting here, which is really nice. Sometimes Hasbro just kind of goes a little bit one tone for the boots, but we've got the boots cast in this brown plastic with a paler color used to paint the straps, weaving in between all of those sort of wooden sticks, which are of course plastic on this one. The painting looks pretty good lining up with the straps. It does bother me when of course the painting doesn't line up. This is looking pretty good. Certainly at a distance it looks like tiny sticks interwoven with leather strips there. I have to say, while the printing here looks very good, we do have a bit of misalignment for this section here on the shoulders. We've kind of got all of these lines, and the blue is kind of trying to fit in between them, but it's kind of hit and miss a little bit over the sticks. It just looks a little bit muddy. Sometimes I kind of wish it would just be solid blue, not try and sort of in between all of that tiny details. You can kind of see the orange at the edge. We've got got this orange strap here, the little tassels. It's just the blue section's just a little bit misaligned. This is very specific to my figure. You may find better ones. For us here in New Zealand, this wave is hard to find. I only ever spotted this one Ezra figure, so I wasn't able to see if it was just this figure or perhaps that might be a painting issue across others. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Underside, no painting on the underside. We can just see the base plastic color there. So it being this orange color, we can see that this top part is painted in this kind of beige gray, and then the blue is trying to sort of paint underneath, but it's not as successful there as it is in other places. Overall, I think the paint is nicely done, especially around the eyes. So important for Black Series figures, kind of makes them look alive. Really liking the metallic finish here, and everything else is looking good. Just that little bit of misalignment there on the shoulders, but a minor critique. He looks fantastic. I'm just loving that robe. Very, very cool. Let's check out the articulation because I'm very curious to see how much we're going to get in the lower legs. Testing out the head. It looks like he has 2 attachment points. Sometimes I find that when I try and turn the heads on figures, they move with the neck. The neck just wants to move with him. When I turn his head side to side, his neck is staying still on my figure. He has a lot of movement here. Because his hair is short in the back, some figures, they have collars and long hair, so we don't get a lot of this. He can look up and down very easily, side to side. Very, very easy. If I push on his neck, I can get that to move a little bit there as well, but I'm not really needing to move the neck because I'm getting so much movement with the head. That's fantastic. The robe isn't coming over the shoulder. In fact, we can see the top of the shoulder on this side. So I'm hoping that means that we've got very free movement. But we could be surprised. Let's see. Oh, he was a bit tight. I was wondering if we were going to get a bit of resistance. He is fresh out of the box, so sometimes those articulations just need a little bit of encouragement to kind of click into place. And that looks like I am getting to about there on those arms. Don't want to stress that attachment point. It is kind of pulling just a little bit. You can see it's just a tiny bit shorter than the other side, but that looks pretty good. When it comes to swiveling, it kind of rotates round to the back, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it might stay in place up here, but it looks like it rotates with the arm. So if I'm going to point it up to the sky, that shoulder piece is now on the back, which does look just a little bit wonky. His head is moving very easily. His arms do come in quite close to the head compared to some figures. Some kind of get into a more of a Y shape. His actually do come quite up high if you want to do that. Swiveling them back into position looks just a little bit better in my opinion, because I like that a costume component being in the right spot. But very happy. Now he's a little bit easier to move now that I've kind of just gotten that sort of stick that you get sometimes when they're fresh out of the box. I love the draping of the sleeves coming back down here when we bend the elbows. That looks really nice. I love that. Just when you can make plastic look like little robes, very, very nice. Again, the elbows are keeping really nice and close to the body, which I think is important, especially if we want to do a two-handed grip. Not all Force users use 2 hands on their lightsabers for combat poses, but you know, sometimes we do want to pose them in some cool poses. Looks like I should be able to get his hands fairly close together. These are slightly wider sleeves because of course we've got the cuff at the elbow rather than around at the wrist like we do on many other traditional characters, but I'm hoping we should be able to rotate his hands just enough to perhaps try a two-handed one. Kind of wants to sit a little bit further out. I think he's going to look pretty cool with just the lightsaber in one hand at least. But yeah, very happy with those arms. Let's test out the torso. The sculpting does show itself a little bit when I start moving him around. You can see just sort of how sort of pinched in it is. I like this better than some of the older figures. They used to have a really shiny sort of flat section, so it wouldn't get in the way of moving, but it meant that you kind of exposed it when you moved the torso around. So we've kind of got a little bit of kind of pinching going on here. If I rock him to the back, probably not going to be doing that for my specific figure. If I move him to the front, we do get a little bit of the sort of that flat, sort of smoothed out section going on here in the back. I think this is a little bit of glue caught in the back of my figure, just tucked in there with the belt. But you can see it does kind of look a little bit like a toy action figure exposed there in the back. But I know that sometimes it's tricky when you've got these sort of gathered robes tucking into this wide belt. You do need to kind of get a little bit of clearance to really move the body. And he does actually have quite a side tilt. I can get him quite a lot to one side, perhaps a little less to that side. He does tip a lot to that side. So we've got that, and of course front and back, a lot to the back, a little bit to the front, and rotation. He's kind of tight. It's a little bit sort of fighting. At this point, I can feel it really pushing there. Probably not going to need to turn him more than that for my specific figure. It's not a click, but it's just a little bit of a fight. I feel like I'm pressing against some of these internal spots, and I'm kind of misshaping the belt by pushing against it. So I'm probably going to keep him sort of looking more straight. It's more of this kind of adjustment that I generally do for my figures. I'm not twisting them at the waist. I do kind of want to keep them just a little bit aligned. When I'm looking at the figure, there's a little bit of a gap just with the torso in the back, but better than in the front. I don't like it when I can see the obvious gap where the torso meets the belt. They're kind of able to do that because the belt, of course, is a little bit rubbery. I can kind of squish it around. So you might be able to sort of press it close because, of course, we've also got the rubbery section down here. It looks like the belt isn't actually attached as part of this. It's kind of sitting over that. It feels like it's anchored in here at the back, so I'm not going to be able to sort of move it around. If I'm pushing like this, that feels anchored. If I'm pushing around at the front, I can kind of wiggle that around. So you won't be able to sort of slide it around for adjustment, but I think because it's got so many specific details, you don't really need to shift it around. It's not a generic belt. Moving on to the legs here. Let's just test to see how wide I can get the legs with those side splits there in the tunic. Being very careful of the tunic. I feel like this is actually the stopping point of the legs themselves, but it could be the tunic impacting there on the upper thighs. That sort of satchel section here is flexible, so it's not impacting on that, but I am starting to stress that side split, but that's pretty wide. You can see the articulation style there in between the legs, and we do have the thigh swivel, but let's just test out how far forward I can get that leg up about there before that is starting to fight against the plastic. Working with the other leg, you can see I am kind of folding it and creating a bit of a crease here, so that's not going to be a long-term option for my specific figure. I don't like to potentially introduce creases there. Out to the back might be a different... That's going to be a lot more because this is a lot more folded. It's kind of reinforcing it. I kind of need to like flare it out like this to really kind of get the legs back, and it's really fighting me. I'm not really going to get the legs back further than that, I think, and probably the same on the other side. You really do need to kind of quite maneuver that back section to really move the legs back. But I'm happy with the way he can move forward. Let's test out the thigh swivel. Just getting his robe out of the way. We can rotate there. We've got some nice draping on those pants, and of course because it's underneath the robes, the thigh swivel is not breaking up sculpting. So of course you've got that sort of rotation there for getting into specific poses. Perhaps you need a little bit more rotation to get him steady on a bookshelf or for display. We can rotate at the knee. Getting his robe, it's a little bit tricky because the robe really wants to sit down flat. I can get his knee up to about this position, which is about to be expected when we have those knee-high boots and slightly draped pants. They're going to hit each other there in the back. And of course, we've now got, seems to be fairly standard. I'm noticing this across the new wave. I saw this on Mirren and Han Solo. We have rotation at the top of the boots there as well. We can rotate at the knee there and here as well. But this is the first figure in the wave that has the boot rotation and the thigh swivel as well. Most of the other figures, I figured this was to make up for the lack of a thigh swivel because that is not present on Han Solo and Mirren, but Ezra has both because his thigh swivel is hidden. hidden. I don't know for certain if these pants, because they're mostly hidden, fairly generic, these pants might be a reused piece from an older figure, which may explain why there is a thigh swivel there. But overall, you barely see them. We kind of see the color. They're pretty standard plain pants. We've just got maybe a subtle side seam sculpting there in the wrinkles. I'd have to go through my collection and see if I can spot the very specific wrinkles, but it doesn't really matter. They are plain pants tucked into boots. So very fun that we've got that swivel there at the top of the boots. I'm liking the sculpting. The one thing that I often point out is when we see buckles and things like that on boots that aren't painted, where you think that's probably a metallic buckle, it should be painted. There isn't a traditional buckle visible because, of course, Ezra's probably had to build this with found materials. He probably wouldn't have found just shiny metallic buckles lying around. So this is all done with straps. So there's not really missing paintwork on this boot, which is really nice. Nothing sort of skipped there. We've got some really nice sculpting with this strap work on the front, and we've got that swivel. We can tip his toes that way. Not really much to the front because it's hitting on this detail here at the front, but we can sort of rotate them around. There's going to be a lot of maneuverability in these feet for helping him stand up. I do notice that he's got nice, quite flat boots, and I found that he actually stood up really steady. Some of the figures, you really got to sort of play with the ankles to get them to stand up. These just stand. He's nice and steady, which is really good. I especially like that for characters that have lightsabers. We've gone over, I hope I've gone over the wrists. That's the other articulation point I forgot to go over. So looking at his hands, we can see that he has the side to side where it goes like this. On his right hand, he has an extended trigger finger. Even though he doesn't come with a blaster, you might be able to put a blaster in his hand because that is an extended trigger finger there. And the other hand is also a side to side. You can just see that tucked in there, and that one is a little bit more of a classic lightsaber accessory grip, though of course this slightly extended trigger finger is not going to stop us from putting a lightsaber in his hand. And of course we can rotate his hands around. But interesting, I wasn't able to find this kind of side rocker or side to side on the other figures from this wave. They generally had a little bit more of a ball joint. From what I could tell, they were tucked in very tightly, but I'm really happy with the sculpting on this figure. And yeah, the robes are always going to impact the articulation there in the legs a little bit. We're certainly going to, yeah, I know that there are limitations with what Hasbro can do because of the costume design, but I think this is pretty good. That's a really nice, good split, and we do have quite a lot of rubbery flimsiness here in the front because the sculpting isn't too deep and really reinforcing it like it is there in the back. So if you want to move the legs forward, I don't think you're going to impact too much there. And yeah, he's just looking cool, and I love how well he can stand up because as I was trying to get to earlier, I really value sturdiness in a Black Series figures if they are holding a lightsaber, because unlike Hasbro's other Star Wars action figure line, their 3.75-inch vintage collection, those lightsabers are fully formed. The Black Series ones, we don't get a separate hilt and lit lightsaber. It is a hilt with an attached blade here. So this is actually two parts. We'll take a closer look at the lightsaber hilt. It looks like it is cast in a gray plastic. It's not painted metallic silver. It is the gray plastic trying to do the heavy lifting here. We've got black paint and a gold stripe there. We've also got a plastic ring here at the end, which is hopefully going to rest nicely on that hook on Ezra's belt. And we have an iconic classic blue blade here. And of course, hopefully it's not going to take too much. Oh, it's an attached one. There we go. It's got a little bit of sort of a notch here towards the end, which is giving it a bit of a click when you press it in. I do kind of wish that they were just solid blades with a single hilt as an accessory like we do in the vintage collection, because of course if they should fall, this little peg here is going to snap off in the hilt and it's going to render it kind of a little bit unfortunately useless for posing, which is why I value figures standing up. So if you really do want to perhaps perhaps do a force move, or you want your characters to stand perhaps a little bit more relaxed, the lightsaber hook hooks nicely over this belt section here. So we've got that ring hooking on, hangs just a little bit out, but that's not too bad. So if you want perhaps to do some poses, perhaps he's, not in combat, that lightsaber hangs there. You do see it from the front, so that's kind of nice as well. I thought maybe with the hook being a little bit more towards the back, it'd be a bit hidden, but it looks pretty good there. So let's go ahead and see how well he's going to hold this in his hand. His fingers are very tight, I have to say, and we've got this this ring around the emitter, so I'm probably going to have to go in this way. And his elbows are quite tight. I kind of hope that this is not going to be too much of a wriggle to get through his hands. Just got to pull his fingers up to get that lightsaber into his hand. So that's looking good. Little bit of a wriggle, but he holds that well. And of course, if we put the blade in as well, it's a bit of a tight blade, but there we go. So we can get a nice pose there. I'll probably spend a bit of time to see if I can get him into a two-handed pose, but I'm not quite sure that I really want to put him in a two-handed pose, because I feel like his hands are going to fight there, and also the hilt isn't really designed for a two-handed pose, because as you can see, his hand is taking up most of the hilt here. If I move this hand up, it's going to be over this ring, which I think is going to be a little bit awkward in the palm. Another aspect with the removable blades is that sometimes they just don't want to sit in exactly straight. You kind of need to rotate them a little bit. I think this one needs to be rotated there. There is a little bit of a recess in the base of the blade to kind of fit in with the emitter shroud that's just on this side. So when I rotated it, it felt like it clicked in, and that looks a lot straighter. So that looks good. So there we go. We have Ezra Bridger in his Peridea outfit, complete with lightsaber accessory. That looks really cool. So of course, we do have quite a few other action figures from the Ahsoka live action series, but Ezra is mostly seen on screen with Sabine, who thankfully has already been released in the Black Series line. So I'm just going to grab that figure so we can do a quick side by side. So here we have Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger as seen in the Ahsoka live action series from the Black Series line. They look really great together. In case you're curious about the proportions of these figures, this is the measurement in centimeters between the two, and this is the inches there. Very nice. They look really cool. I love the vibrant colors of both characters, and I think the facial printing and likenesses is really nice. I'm really loving the lineup of figures from the Black Series line for the Ahsoka series. Of course, we do see these together a lot on screen, but we do see Ezra with the adorable Noti on Peridea. I think that would be really fun. Those cute little turtle creatures, I think, would translate to a really fun Black Series figure. So maybe fingers crossed we'll see one of those in the future. I've had so much fun unboxing this Ezra Bridger figure. So happy to have him in my collection. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today, as I had a lot of fun unboxing a brand new Black Series figure. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Black Series fan, I recently unboxed the Night Sister Merrin figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.